Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namassami. Dear friends, we are entering the month of Vesak, and we had received some very beautiful suggestions from our founding teacher, Ayya Sobhana, about contemplations for this month. On the Vesak day, which at our particular center is going to be celebrated on in person, a live event here on May 19th. Everybody who is nearby and able to come, you're very welcome to join for that in-person event. We're honoring the birth, the full awakening, and the parinibbana, or the final nirvana, of our Buddha. The Buddha who lived 2,600 years ago and is the founder of this practice of the Dhamma that we rely on for our path and for our hope to obtain the release from dukkha. So one of the suggestions that Ayya Sobhana made was contemplating about birth. The birth of the Buddha, and what it would signify to have the determination, this is my last birth. Or shall I practice to make it so, this is my last birth? Could we hold that thought in mind for 2 minutes without becoming scared or not being able to hold on to it? Or would we be able to hold on to it as an adhitthana that 84,000 moments a day we could remember this adhitthana, this determination, or this aspiration, this is my last birth, or may this be my last birth. So I looked up the phrase in Pali, ayam antima jati. And I see that this is a phrase that's used regularly by the Buddha about himself. Not used by the fully enlightened disciples. When the disciples get their enlightenment, they say kina jati, which means birth is destroyed. But when a Sammasambuddha is enlightened, he says, ayam antima jati, this is my last birth. Who knows the significance of that? But we do know that in the story, the baby Buddha, and this is true of our Buddha and all of the Sammasambuddhas going past through the eons, when they're born, they immediately are able to walk and talk, and they take 7 steps and make the declaration, this is my last birth. I'm going to share the screen and just show you so I'm starting this sutta at the end instead of starting at the beginning. The knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there will be no more future lives. And I found in the sutta a cluster of teachings that's giving actually the same lesson over and over again. And it's truly about how the Bodhisattva got to the breakthrough. What did he have to do to come to this awakening? This sutta here is number Anguttara Nikaya in the threes, number 103, and it's called Before Awakening. Mendicants, before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but intent on awakening, that is the being intent on awakening is the English translation for the Bodhisatta. We've all heard about the Bodhisatta vow, or the determination to become a Buddha, but Bhante Sujata, who's thought about it very carefully, is considering it in the context of the Theravada as one who is intent on awakening. So then he thought, what's the gratification in the world? What's the drawback? What's the escape? And then it occurred to me, the pleasure and happiness that arise from the world, this is its gratification. Sukha, you could say, is like mental pleasure or psychological pleasure. Physical pleasure. In this case, sukha somanasa. Somanasa is like mental happiness, and sukha is physical happiness. And then his second idea, that the world is impermanent, suffering, and perishable. This is its drawback. And then the third idea, removing and giving up desire and greed for the world. This is its escape. As long as I didn't truly understand the world's gratification, drawback, and escape in this way for what they are, I didn't announce my supreme perfect awakening in this world, with its gods, maras, and brahmas, this population, with its ascetics and brahmins, its gods and humans. But when I did truly understand the world's gratification, drawback, and escape in this way for what they are, I announced my supreme perfect awakening in this world, with its gods, maras, and brahmas, this population, with its ascetics and brahmins, its gods and humans. Knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there will be no more future lives. So this third one is key. Removing, giving up the desire and greed for this world. We could picture, the round and round of the wheel of samsara, or this merry-go-round of life, where we feel in some way caught up and you could say trapped in a certain way by the habits of the mind, such that the desire for more life is always present. And if our life is threatened, if our existence is threatened, that some kind of instinctive panic sets in, and because of that reaction, then that greedy mind is reacting and grasping to protect itself. So then, or you could say, thinking in terms of karma, our duties, that we all have, in a way, like a job to do in this world. I remember when I was much younger, feeling sometimes hemmed in a certain way by the circumstances, whether it was my economic success in my work, or whether it was my relationships and family and the complications that arose from that, and feeling in a certain way, like a beast of burden, like the ox pulling the cart, that I was obliged to continue to carry on, fulfilling the duties that had come to me, that I had undertaken. And then at different times in my life, because of circumstances, it happened sometimes that there was a break in the material sets of duties and obligations that one could experience being free. There was one particular moment when we I decided to give up work and sold my condominium and got rid of most of my possessions, put a few things in storage, and just had a very small number of possessions in the back of the car, and was on my way for a couple of years of hiking. And at that moment, where there had been such a massive set of duties and obligations and just this whole superstructure of things that had to be taken care of, there was a space. There was a space of freedom, a space of emptiness. And so that's like a simile of the kind of space of freedom that one could experience when this web of desire and greed and relationship to the world comes up. I'm going to jump to part of another sutta, and then ask for some questions. Can you see now the sutta with the householder tapusa? Yes? Okay. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the land of the Malas near the Malayan town named Uruvelakapa. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning, and taking his bowl and robe, entered Uruvelakapa for alms. Then, after the meal, on his return from alms round, he addressed Venerable Ananda. Ananda, you stay right here while I plunge deep into the great wood for the day's meditation. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. And the Buddha plunged deep into the great wood and sat at the root of a tree for the day's meditation. Then the householder, Tapusa, went up to the Venerable Ananda, bowed, sat to one side, and said to him, Honorable Ananda, we are lay people who enjoy sensual pleasures. We like sensual pleasures, we love them, and take joy in them. But renunciation seems like an abyss. I have heard that in this teaching and training, there are very young mendicants whose minds are secure in renunciation, Their confidence settled and decided upon it. They see it as peaceful. Renunciation is the dividing line between the multitude and the mendicants in this teaching and training. Householder, we should see the Buddha about this matter. Come, let's go see the Buddha and inform him about this. As he answers, so we'll remember it. Yes, sir, replied Tapusa. Then Ananda, together with Tapusa, went to the Buddha, bowed and sat to one side. Ananda told him what happened. And the Buddha replied, "That's so true, Ananda, that's so true. Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, I too thought renunciation is good, seclusion is good, but my mind wasn't secure in renunciation. It wasn't confident, settled, and decided about it. I didn't see it as peaceful. Then I thought, what is the cause? What is the reason why my mind isn't secure in renunciation and not confident, settled, and decided about it? Why don't I see it as peaceful?" Then I thought, I haven't seen the drawback of sensual pleasures, and so I haven't cultivated that. I haven't realized the benefits of renunciation, and so I haven't developed that. That's why my mind isn't secure in renunciation, not confident, settled, and decided about it. That's why I don't see it as peaceful. Then I thought, suppose that seeing the drawbacks of sensual pleasures, I were to cultivate that, and suppose that realizing the benefits of renunciation, I were to develop that. It's possible that my mind would become secure in renunciation. It would be confident, settled, and decided about that. I would see it as peaceful. And so after some time, I saw the drawbacks of sensual pleasure, cultivated that, realized the benefits of renunciation, cultivated that. Then my mind became secure in renunciation, confident, settled, decided. I saw it as peaceful. And so quite secluded from sensual pleasure, secluded from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first absorption. This is the first jhana, which is rapture and bliss born of seclusion. This particular sutta goes on to develop a series of 9 different levels of meditation. And at each level of meditation, he experienced that he could see the advantage of a more refined, better level of meditation, but he was not yet able to go there because of not being secure in that. I felt so touched by the language that the lay people had about admiring and appreciating the renunciation of the mendicants, but when they thought of renouncing themselves, it seems like a terrifying abyss to let go of something that they actually are really grounded on and depending on to, in a way, step off the cliff. And so then this process of contemplating, acknowledging that the happiness and pleasure that we get from the things that we enjoy is real. Reflecting about the impermanence, the end of those things. And truly, truly seeing the ending or the destruction of what is our our greatest happiness that we know so far. And then based on that, becoming willing to, capable to let go of any greed and grasping in relationship to that. We see this formula in quite a few different contexts about different aspects of things that we can experience in this world, that we need to see the satisfaction, the danger, and the escape. This morning we had a guided meditation, and I invited us to be aware of the breath and be aware of the feeling of the breath, how much the breath is a wonderful breath, because the breath is life itself, and at a very deepest, subconscious level, breath is the nutriment of life, and we want to keep breathing because breath is life. And so seeing how the pleasure and wanting in connection with the breath is part and parcel of the same thing. And then being able then to imagine when this body dies and becomes like a senseless log lying on the forest floor, separated from the breath, so that the elements in the body separate, the air element of the breath and the earth element of the bones and the water element and the heat element all just separate and fall apart. And there's no more breath. There's no more feeling, no more perception, no more consciousness. And being able to kind of visualize that in a real way, so that then one could meditate using the breath as an object of meditation, but renouncing any greed about the breath, so that all the way up to the last breath, there's no anger in the breath, there's no agitation in breath. Even when you got to the last breath, you wouldn't feel worried because of not having any anxiety or agitation related to clinging about the breath. And so that is my one, I should say, a simile or an example of how one could practice seeing the happiness, the danger, and the escape regarding anything at all that one might cling to. So now I'm going to pause for a minute. First, I'm going to call it our monastic colleagues, Ayya Brahmavara, and those at the Aranya Bodhi Hermitage, if you'd like to add any thoughts or what you know about this particular teaching.
Thank you, Ayya. I really love what you just said about the guided meditation this morning. I'm sorry I missed it, because it sounds like a wonderful way of relating to the anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath. And it reminds me of in the Anapanasati Sutta, I just really love to follow these 16 steps in the Anapanasati Sutta, which really takes us through, we're observing the breath, meditating, and considering the breath in relation to the body, feelings, thoughts, mind, state of mind. And then at the end, the last 4 steps in Anapanasati Sutta, where we're invited to consider anicca, consider impermanence, then consider fading away, viraga, consider nirodha, consider cessation. And then, final one, patinissagga, relinquishment. And I just love to practice with this, because my main kind of object of meditation is the breath. And to have that attitude that you've just talked about, Ayya Sobhana, of observing the breath, but also with this attitude of actually letting go, actually seeing the end of each breath as the end. And really letting go, like no future, no next breath, this is it. And I just find that so, so helpful. It's like a whole attitude, isn't it, Ayya? It's an attitude that we can then carry through to all of our experience.
Yes, thank you. The new insight that came to me, there's a pleasant feeling associated with the breath meditation, which is when we take the breath to the level of jhana practice, and then the piti is arising because of the deep meditation and letting go of unwholesome states and so forth. So that is a kind of pleasure that one can have with the anapanasati, with the breath meditation. But then there is also a different kind of pleasure and happiness, which is actually the dangerous kind, which is this breathing to live and living to breathe, and seeing breath as the nutriment of life and wanting to be alive, and actually finding the breath like enjoyable because it's connected with this life. And so then to see the danger in that side of it, and to separate the pure and harmless happiness of a seclusion from unwholesome states from the sensual pleasure of what like and dislike and life. So, but yes, it's very true about the last part. When we understand this teaching, this fundamental teaching about seeing the gratification, the danger, and the escape, that is another way of looking at the wisdom factor that's at the end of the 16 steps of the Anapanasati. I wonder if any our friends at the Aranyabodhi Hermitage would have something to add. Or let us see your faces to say hello.
Okay. Hello. So, hang on. Oh, I'm trying to get my Zoom things worked out. Okay. Greetings, and thank you for this teaching. Yes, so one thing I really appreciate about the teaching on the gratification, the danger, and the escape is just how sort of balanced a teaching that is. I think, people sometimes will complain about Buddhism and how it's so negative and such a downer, and talking about how terrible all sensual pleasures are and all of this. And this teaching, it just makes it very clear, no, there is gratification, that it's true. And, um, gratification, like in English, this is related to gratefulness, to gratitude, to the word grace, all these things that are like very strong, deep words that we consider good, about the goodness of life, what is given to us here. And to acknowledge there is gratification in those, there is goodness, there is all of this. And we don't have to ignore that part of it. It's like that's actually knowing that gratification is part of this teaching. But it's not the end of the teaching. It's like that, and then the balance of knowing those things are, not stable and not reliable, that they're not the only source of, goodness in the world, and then showing, there is this, there is the escape also. So just that's something I appreciate about this teaching, and I appreciate you bringing out those aspects of it today.
Does anybody else have a question or a comment to add? Sharanya.
Just a oops, just a comment, Ayya. So nothing to add to the richness of the discussion, but when you started off by saying, imagine saying to yourself that this could be your last birth, and my mind immediately went to my daughter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what would it be like to never see her again? So just the hope that I continue to run into her and into the unknown future. But this sutta is so spot on. I mean, it's such a wonderful discussion for Vesak because I felt like it captured me perfectly, right? That I get caught up in the pleasures of the world and I fully don't understand the drawbacks. But then I'm reminded of it every day in conversations that we have about inheritance and things like that. And yet there's still a part of me that's clinging to the way things are. It's not strong enough to practice giving up or renunciation. So I think it just captures where I am very well, and I'm sure a lot of other people too are on the call today.
Yeah. I'm going to take you, before we finish today, show you a few of the other suttas where the same pattern is applied to different sets of factors and things that we can experience. And you could say that both something that's very unskillful, like it's say like getting high on cocaine has its gratification, its danger, and its escape. Having a loving and supporting relationship with one's children has its gratification, its danger, and its escape. Caring for mother and father has its gratification, its danger, and escape. The path factors have their gratification, danger, and escape. The different types of meditation all have their gratification, danger, and escape. Anything at all which is conditioned has gratification, danger, and escape. And so then, step by step, we gradually remove the things that are the most dangerous. And then we may step back from things that are less obvious in terms of the danger. But when we look and we see the end coming, and we see how much danger there will be for us if we go to our last breath still beset with clinging and anxiety about something, then and we don't want to go to our end that way, then we want to become willing to let go. Like when we see the danger, we're willing to let go, and then after becoming willing to let go, then we may be able to, with confidence, to establish ourselves in the next level, a more refined and stable aspect of practice. And this was what the Buddha describes in the Tapusa Sutta. Like, he couldn't go to the second jhana until he was willing to let go of the first jhana. If he's really holding on to the first jhana, really grasping the first jhana, then then he's trapped there. So you have to say, okay, been there, done that. I don't need another one. So that's nice. First jhana. Thank you for sharing First jhana. Now I'm going to go on onto the next thing, and it's the same thing. Like many of our, I've been interested in emotions for a long time, and actually the great majority of human emotions are actually responses that we have that are because all beings have the desire for happiness. It's involved with a very deep impulse towards what's for our welfare, even what's for our true happiness, and to just acknowledge and to think, even if the emotion is, fear or anxiety or something like that, say, well, thank you for pointing out something dangerous. Okay, so because of you, I know that, and so I can see the value, but then I also see the danger if I cling to that. It's got a danger to me, an immediate danger in becoming less skillful, and also becoming more likely to be trapped and unable to escape from this cycle. I'm going to invite Patipada to make a comment.
One of the things you taught me when I was struggling with literally my attachment to pain, physical pain, was that by holding on to pain and not willing to release it, I would not be able to see how it's actually changing moment by moment. And one of the practices you taught me to that really helped me to release this was self-compassion and metta, because the struggle is there, the being with all of its memories is where it is, and so to just have metta and compassion for the being feeling stuck was enough to release the stuckness. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Maureen?
Yeah. Can you tell me which book the sutta for the householder tapusana well, yeah.
Tapusa, yes, I
Which
can.
which is it? Which book is it in?
It is in the Anguttara Nikaya,
Uh-huh.
in the Book of Nines,
Mm.
9.41.
Okay. Thank you very much.
He
Yes.
lets go of 9 kinds of meditation.
Mm. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
I want to come back to show you some other suttas that fill in the pattern a little bit more. Not quite ready. Here I am in the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses. This is called Before Awakening. Before awakening, I was still unawakened, intent on awakening, I thought. What's the gratification, the drawback, and the escape when it comes to the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element? And then it occurred to me, there is the pleasure and happiness that arises from the earth element. Isn't that good to acknowledge it, to admit it? I love this earth. I care about this earth. I don't want this earth to be destroyed. And But this earth element is impermanent. It is suffering and perishable. That's the drawback. Removing and giving up the desire and greed for the earth element. So I guess that would mean that one should not be what they call a land baron, or somebody who wants to own a lot of land because they love earth and they want to own a piece of earth as being their property, their individual property. So,
It's the American dream.
and and the earth element inside of us that I'm really glad that my bones are strong and straight so far, and they haven't yet started to become too brittle and to be constantly breaking. So I say, thank you bones, thank you teeth, thank you for doing your job so far. But we know that it's impermanent, suffering, and perishable. And then giving up, completely removing the desire and greed for the earth element. That's the escape. And likewise with each one of the elements. Here, we live in California. There's a lot of competition in the West for water. Wars have been waged. People have been murdered. There's been a lot of theft and violence and trickery and so much conflict because of people who wanted to be in control and ownership of water, right? So, and and the same thing internally within this body. I'm so grateful, that I'm able to salivate and able to digest the food because of the water element, so on like that. So that's the earth element. Now I'm going to go on. So here, this is called gratification. There's numerical discourses 22, 26. Before my awakening, I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening. I thought, what's the gratification, the drawback, and the escape regarding form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness? That is the 5 aggregates which are subjected to clinging, which is another way of understanding or experiencing things, particularly in relationship to forming an identity, something that we cling to as being a self. And then here's another one. Before my awakening, I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening. I thought, what's the gratification, the drawback, and the escape when it comes to the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind? The eyes, with the eye we can see so many wonderful things in this world. We can see our friends and our teachers, and we can see forms that are harmonious and pleasing. And so we are grateful for these faculties of perception that are the source of all our experience, and our experience really is the resource that we have for gaining wisdom. So we could never gain wisdom without at least having some of these. And yet, all of them are falling apart, all of them becoming otherwise. And so then, the secret here is the desire and greed. The desire and greed has to be given up completely regarding all of these internal faculties, and likewise the external corresponding objects the visible forms, the audible sounds, the smells, the tastes, the tactile objects that can be touched, and the ideas that can be understood or thought of with the mind. All have so much gratification. And when we're honest enough to admit that, then our contemplation of the drawback is, it's like it's balanced. We're not just being aversive or like with a kind of like a neurotic displeasure that says, I hate my life, I hate my eyes, everything is unpleasant, all the touches are unpleasant. You know, that's said to be what it's like in the hell realms, but in the earth realm, it's sort of, we got a mixture of pleasant and unpleasant touches, pleasant and unpleasant sights, and so forth. But then we to get wisdom, we don't want the rose-colored glasses that only sees and experiences pleasure, and we don't want to see the special painful glasses that make everything seem ugly and painful, but we actually can see both. We can see the gratification and we can see the danger because of impermanence and because they will become separated, they will cease to exist. And then when we do that contemplation long enough, then the greed and desire lets go. It breaks. And we can still have those experiences with freedom. Here's another one, also called awakened. 6 faculties. The faculty of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. So very similar. As long as I didn't understand these faculties, gratification, drawback, and escape, I didn't announce my awakening from the world with its gods, Mars, and so on. When I did truly understand these faculties, the gratification, the drawback, and the escape, I announced my supreme, perfect awakening in this world, with its gods, Maras, and Brahmas, this population, with its ascetic and Brahmin, its gods and humans. Knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there will be no future lives. And I've got one more to tell you about. Now here there's a faculty of the path. One of the faculties, one of the groups that we use on our way to awakening. There are these 5 faculties. The faculty of faith, energy, mindfulness, immersion, or I could call it unification of the mind, and wisdom. As long as I didn't truly understand these 5 faculties, gratification, drawback, and escape, I didn't announce my supreme awakening. But when I did truly understand these 5 faculties, gratification, drawback, and escape, then I announced my supreme perfect awakening. So, and this understanding that along the path, there are so many factors which help us along the way, but later will disappear. And so you can't climb up a ladder if your one foot is padlocked or handcuffed or foot cuffed, if your foot is cuffed onto one step of the ladder, and so you won't be able to lift your foot off of that step. You can never be able to go up the ladder, can you? or if one is paralyzed, I guess with fear or something, that, you're holding on and you can't take the next step because you're not able to let go. So you have to be able to let go in order to go on. So this is a set of short teachings about the gratification, the danger and escape. And I want to pause here to see if there are other questions, or especially if anybody is willing to report your own experiences with learning to let go. Oh, sorry, I didn't want you to be that much in the middle. Here we go. Replace spotlight. Here I am.
Yeah, I do really recognize what you're saying about the sort of the leap of faith or something that's required to be able to progress on the path. It's a very, powerful point, that we have to let go, and we don't quite know what comes next. We have to sort of trust that the letting go is going to lead us forward in a way that will result in a greater sense of well-being, greater happiness. But we're not, seeking that. It's like a byproduct. But this kind of leap of faith that's required, really again and again. I really take that in from what you've been saying and from these beautiful teachings. And it's really wonderful to see this paradigm, this gratification, danger, and escape teaching in all these different aspects. That's so rich, how we can apply it in all these different ways. Thank you so much.
And the way that this teaching is so closely associated to enlightenment, to awakening. If you wanted to have a shortcut, if you didn't have time for an eightfold noble path and you just wanted a threefold noble path, just take this as simple that everything that one is able to cling to is exactly what one needs to let go of. Needs to be able to let go of the greed and desire in relationship to that. So it doesn't mean that we stop breathing, that we stop seeing, but that we have to really be hard and you could say brutally honest with ourselves to realize to what extent, yes, we still do possibly have a residue of greed and desire in relationship to these experiences. I know that for myself, when I feel tired, it would be lovely to just go to samadhi, or go to meditation, or go to satipatthana at a time like this. But then if there's anything that's, I could say, stressful or tired or uncomfortable in the mind, then there's that desire for reading something or looking at something, of having a diversion to distract from something unpleasant. And so it's so very easy. We are so strongly habituated to those things. And as well, when anything happens that's skillful, even something wonderful, we know, like here in the monastery, sometimes we make an extra effort to be extremely like smooth and peaceful in our deportment so that we don't disturb one another, to keep ourselves really like peaceful and quiet with our bodies and minds. And when that's happening, it is very pleasant, very delightful. It both it's more tranquil, but also that then one has so much appreciation for one another, saying, oh, how kind and gentle people are to try to be peaceful and to try not to disturb one another. And how easy it is, especially if one has responsibilities in the communities, to say, oh, this is a rule, we have to hold up this standard. Let's hold up the standard of quietness. I've got a great big sign, a huge sign that says, shh, be quiet. And this is where, the mind has like so easily goes over from just having an experience or making a choice, which is a skillful choice at the moment, as into some kind of a clinging. And this is what causes so many like bumps and lumps in human relationships. Okay, Maureen.
I grow tomato seedlings, and I may hand them out at the food pantry. And it's such a chore now at my age. My house is taken over by this activity. And I started thinking about it and thinking, this is me kind of creating a self, or clinging to a self by keeping on doing this. But I I get pleasure from doing it, but I see that that is a danger of it, and I don't know whether to keep on doing it, at my age. Um, but it seems a good thing for my community, for people who come and they get given the thing, they're given something that they can actually take care of and appreciate. And I get a great deal of pleasure handing it out to them as well. And I just don't know what to do about this activity every year. This is the time I start giving them out, and it's all worrying about whether they've grown or whether they've withstood their time out in the regular temperatures and outside. Those are burdensome, but I just don't know whether to sort of stop doing it, or whether I've to stop clinging to wanting to do it as well as possible, or those sorts of things. That's one of the things that is going through my mind as a householder. What you do when they're even good things, that sort of thing.
Well, other monastics or others in this room might have their own answers about this. For me, that sense of divided, being in a kind of in the crosshairs of a double bind, about seeing the advantage and the disadvantage, and then it becomes sort of like a pressure point that one feels uncomfortable either way, whichever choice you make. No, that's not what this practice is aiming for, as far as I understand it. Instead, that whenever there's something to do which is not harmful to oneself and not harmful to anybody else, one may do that thing. One may do it again and again. And seeing that something is skillful and beneficial to do for the welfare of beings, for the welfare of oneself and others, without any kind of regret or remorse at all. One may quickly do that thing again and again. But then, if we are sensitive to our inner state, it will come a time that then the activity begins to be tiresome and burdensome on the body and burdensome on the mind. And then one is ready to stop. And then one can stop. I just would like to hope that whether you go or whether you stop, whether you go ahead or whether you stop, to do so with a clear conscience and a sense of just so much gratitude and appreciation for having this life and having this possibility of growing in wisdom and growing in our practice. So it's not what we do that's the danger. It's the greed and aversion that we create around it. So if there's a way to do it without greed and aversion, that's really ideal. And if there is greed and aversion involved with it, then that's the learning opportunity to try to understand with wisdom what's going on and to let go of that greed and aversion. Hey, Brahmavara, do you have a different or an extended answer about this question?
No, I feel that's a really helpful answer. And I mean, it's relevant for all of us, right? Because this example, Maureen's such a great example. I can just relate to ways in which I'm also a creature of habit, and it really just to be able to see that. I mean, these teachings just give us the opportunity, I feel, to see where to notice the sort of cycles of behavior. And it's interesting, you have an annual cycle with this one. So you get to reflect each year on should I, shouldn't I? But I relating it to gratification, danger, and escape, I can see you've got the gratification, you really know the gratification, you really know the danger, and then you also know the escape. And even in the doing of the thing or the not doing of the thing, then to consider the escape. That's really where the Buddha's pointing to. And I see that in Ayya Sobhana, in your advice, you're really pointing to that, to see the escape, whether we do or we don't, whether we continue or we stop. So that for me is very helpful and applicable to so many things, so many day-to-day activities, actually.
Yeah, tell us about it. We have Vesak coming. So that's a perfect example in monastic life of, it's kind of like Christmas. You have to get out the decorations and put up the decorations and put up the flags and run off the chanting book that you're going to use and invite the people and so many things like that. And we do these things which create a moment of joy or a moment of inspiration for others and for ourselves. And it creates a potential moment for a kind of a synergy where, and in the sharing of Dhamma, like the Dhammakatha, by the sharing of Dhamma between people, when there's that moment of realization, if somebody realizes something, that's it's just such an important event. when a new insight or a new understanding arises as a result of a conversation. It's worth putting up all the decorations and printing off the flowers and so forth in order to make an opportunity for those kinds of encounters.
Thank you, Ayya. It's been very helpful. I've really got to work on the escape, and I
Yeah.
could carry on doing it, or I could stop doing it, and either way might be an escape,
Right.
depending on how I face that was what I'm doing. Yes,
Right.
but it was the idea of selfing, that I'm deep
Yeah.
down, am I clinging to an image of myself in this community, or that I've got in my mind, that's.
Yeah. Get rid
Is
of
it?
that.
Yeah, it's impermanent. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll call on Ren.
Thank you. I'm kind of trying to wrap my arm around something concept. Yes. I feel the wisdom and depth of this teaching, because initially there's this 3 steps, right? The gratification, happiness is gratification, and the second is that but unfortunately, there's also dukkha. And so, what do we do about it? The answer is escape, right? So on that level, it appeals to kind of 2 layers of existence. One is the part of us that are still clinging, who still don't see the impermanence of things, or how things interconnect. So at that level, we can say, yeah, I will escape, I will renounce, and to get a peace of mind. So that works. But I think, like, to me, this is what I'm grappling with, is that the deeper wisdom is really about perspective, to have the perspective that everything is impermanent. So therefore, there's not really me, this idea, this regular idea of me there, to be happy about something, or to suffer from something, or to escape from something. But so that's the feels like a perspective. And I hope that's still in line with with the teaching. And obviously it's a hard thing for me, because by my comment this morning, it's really, really still very much attached to what am I going to do with this existence, and all that attachment comes from identifying with this person that's in front of you right now.
So any object or any phenomenon that we can experience has its gratification and has its danger. So the gratification and the danger is connected to our to those experiences, those phenomenon. But then the escape is escaping from greed and desire in relationship to that. So when you experience breathing and the pleasant aspect of breathing, you might just experience breath is good. You don't even see that there's a greed for breath. You just see breathing as pleasant. But then when you see the danger, perhaps you still have not yet even recognized that there's a greed about breath. You just say, oh no, there's going to be a last breath. What can I do? The breath will stop, it will end. And then you've seen the danger. And then it's because of seeing this conundrum of the pleasure and the danger being both together, that then one has to look more deeply and look into that experience. And then when you look more deeply, then you discover, oh, there's greed there, there's desire there. And when you see the greed and desire within that experience, then that's where the escape is in escaping from greed, escaping from desire. So then somehow there is some kind of a psychological withdrawal or a separation that one is still breathing. And even like one can still experience the beauty of breath and the danger of breath, and that knowing that the breath is pleasant, and knowing that there's going to be a last breath. But because the mind has completely cut off the greed and desire around that, there's no excitement and what's called nandi. It's like, what a great breath. Oh, I love this breath. So that kind of excitement is not happening, and also the anxiety is not happening. So the different kind of like emotions in our relationship to breath are not there, which is something in us is saying, okay, there's this breath, it's pleasant. There's breath. It's not going to go forever. There will be a last breath. And the mind is saying, okay, it is what it is. It's pleasant and it's going to end. And the mind is just stabilized in connection to that. And that's the escape. So it's not that we escape from any activity or any choice or anything at all in our life. It's that our attitude changes, I think. Does that make sense? Does that answer what you were speaking to?
Yes, actually, so one thing that I want to stress is that I feel that in order to have that escape that you just described, one needs to have the insight of impermanence and dependent origination. To have that insight and then escape happen naturally. It makes sense. It just flow. Because until then, it's not possible for me to escape that way.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. I have to have that insight.
Right.
That's my point. Thank
Good.
you.
Perfect. Thank you. I think I'll call on Corina. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thank you for this discussion. There's so many tangents, so many interesting things and questions. I think what's most important for me right now, though, is what gets me the most really is the pleasure of distraction. And if maybe as a layperson, but it might be a stronger, we have more possibilities for stronger distractions, especially in terms of renunciation. Yes, that last question, I've been thinking about the first hindrance, meditation, the first hindrance of sensual pleasures, and the analogy of that it's like going into debt. And I thought about that for a long time. I was like, well, I know going into debt is not pleasant or not something I want, but I didn't quite see how it relates or why that's the analogy for sensual pleasures. And I think it's because of how it affects the mind, the energies of the mind. But based on the last question, I think what's most important for me is actually khanti again, patience. Because again, like, what if I can definitely see gratification and danger, but the insight isn't coming. Kind of like Ren was describing. It's like maybe I don't see it enough, obviously, to have the insight and then the ability to not be for clinging. And so it seems like my next tool that I can use, or along with it, is sort of this just idea of patience. And something just very banal, like, let's say I'm tired. And for me, when I'm tired, sometimes I want to watch cat videos. And it's actually really quite difficult to not watch a cat video and just be with the tiredness. And what I think what I cultivate then is just this, since I don't have the insight yet, it's just this strong patience of being able to be with the unpleasant. So yeah, any other advice or suggestions or insights, I'd be happy to hear on how to deal with the gratification of distraction.
This is so true, and this is how the entire world lives, and perhaps how the world has lived for a long time, at least the past 20 years, if not the past 20 millenniums. When we experience stressful, painful situations, the easiest way to get out of pain is through distraction. Even if anybody is a parent, if your child is getting upset about something, I think sometimes instead of telling the child to be quiet or to calm down or something like that, you give them a different toy to draw their attention, or do something to draw their attention away from the theme that was causing them to feel upset. Even I think probably medical doctors, if you have patients who suffer from chronic pain, that focusing on the pain could keep a certain, like neural pathways become like trafficked over again and again and again, and then the painful response or the experience of pain becomes more strongly habitual. And so then even a good therapist might say, oh, just, why don't you watch a program or something, or reflect about something else, or even go to the beach, or do something to take your mind off of the trouble. And it is, I think, at some kind of level, that's a good therapy as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough, because it doesn't unlock the pattern itself. Whereas instead we have so much more refined tools, especially in terms of meditation, that when there is a stressful or unpleasant feeling, if one is able to use the tools of mindfulness to simply watch what's arising and passing away and changing with mindfulness, and when one is able to let go of agitation, anger, or upset about it, but simply to look at something reframe the perception, so that instead of looking with distress upon a painful experience, instead just observing like what's happening in the body in a kind of like a neutral way, that then we can discover that in a certain way, pain is optional or can be transformed or looked at in a different way. Or if we know how to bring about beautiful meditation, it's possible that by bringing up the meditation on loving kindness, or some other beautiful meditation, that one can step back from the stressful experience, but instead of going to a different sensual replacement, instead you're stepping back to the pleasure of meditation. And as I understand it, the pleasure of meditation is ever so much more safe and beneficial than the pleasure of simple distraction. Whether one should patiently bear up to things that are unpleasant and kind of like look right at them with unwavering attention, or whether one should ignore things that are stressful and place the mind on a different object which is not stressful in the context of meditation. Both strategies are possible at different times within a context of meditation. This is not the same thing as distraction, but in meditation, like if my knees are painful and it really is, I'm not able to settle down my restlessness because of a painful knee. If I just am aware of the sensation where the hands are touching, so this is not painful, and that other one is painful. So when I'm having my attention here, I don't experience the same pain. When I have my attention over there, I do experience it. And so then, I can discover that, and for the purpose of being able to come down and enter meditation, I could place the mind into objects and meditation procedures that are not distressing, not agitating. And that is a way of escaping from pain. It's not unskillful to do that, but it is a sensual pleasure is like being in debt, because after you finish consuming it, in a few minutes you need another one or you need something else. And so you got to keep paying installments on your and the bill collector. Your pleasure with the mustache, the guy who's saying you must pay the rent, is saying you must get another hit of pleasure by having some more chocolate or another cat video or something like that.
Yeah, thank you. It also makes me think actually of wisdom, because depending on how unpleasant something is, sometimes if it's a little unpleasant or a little bit of suffering, you can meet it. But if it's a bigger one, maybe the right thing to do is to sort of get a little bit of a break. And just the importance of meditation, because in meditation, even if I don't usually come with an agenda in meditation, but in that, if I just get in that quiet space, then the insight of things that have been happening in my life, I get to see them in a new way, and so those deeper sufferings can be looked at.
Yeah, I do believe that meditation, that we spend so much of our life in planning and reacting and worrying about problems, that in effect the pain receptors or the dissatisfaction receptors are constantly getting exercise. And so that to the extent that during meditation we can just give that a rest, that then even the material brain has a chance to recover a little bit and to heal. And for those pathways like the pain receptors or the agitation to irritation receptor can kind of like heal over while the mind is focused on meditation. And that all by itself is very therapeutic. Yeah.
Thank you.
I thank everybody for this fruitful discussion, and the teaching that I pointed to today is simple. There's only 3 bullets to remember, but if we could remember that it's kind of like a promise that this is one of the powerful patterns, one of the powerful teachings that is leading towards the goal. And so if we can try to discover for ourselves how to face up to the gratification, face up to the danger, and then discover the escape, that will be for our benefit.